Good afternoon, everybody. Big Mike back here with you once again. And today I am bringing you once again my weekly wrap up of pro wrestling for last week. And what better place to start than with Monday Night Raw? And we start out with the Bloodline, aka Jimmy Uso and Solo Sikoa, coming out. Basically say, oh, Bloodline's fine, you mess with the Bloodline, you mess with all of us. And then out come the Street Profits, pretty much pointing out, oh, hey, Roman's a part-timer, Jay is not here, maybe he's not all Bloodline like you think. And this leads to a match between Solo, Jimmy, and the Street Profits, which was a very entertaining match, but, ultimately, Bloodline with the big victory as we go through this story. I will say this step feels kind of pointless, just pointing out, Bloodline's grumbling. I mean, we've seen it. We don't need the Street Profits to spell it out for us. So, there's that. And then post-match, we have Kevin Owens coming in and just super kicks and stunners to both Jimmy and Solo. Basically, and then later on in a backstage interview, basically say, yeah, I can do this all day by myself, and watch what happens next. Next up, we have the Brock Lesnar accepting Omos's challenge for WrestleMania. We had the MVP pitch, which honestly got me a little hyped for it. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm not the biggest fan of, Omos. But potentially seeing Brock Lesnar suplex the heck out of Omos at WrestleMania sounds pretty good to me, honestly. Like, it's not going to be, 10-star match, but it will be fun at least. So, we'll see what happens there. We then have a backstage interview with Becky Lynch and Lita, who are challenging for the women's tag team championships in the main event. Where basically Becky says, yeah, we got a plan for Bayley, and watch what happens next. Really, watch what happens next. Then we had a very, very good match between Chad Gable and Cody Rhodes, which, honestly, no real story to it, but they had a real banger of a match. You have Otis on the outside distracted, looking for Maxine Dupree, so, he can be recruited to Maximum Male Models, which I guess is an interesting story, but I don't know. We even had a point where Cody leaves the ring, saddles up to Otis, and he's like, yeah, she's right over there. You see her? And honestly, that was a fun moment. Like, it's hard to explain Otis, but I love the dude. He's not the best wrestler in the world, but he's very entertaining. Then we have a Cody Rhodes interview where he'll pretty much saying, yeah, we got Roman coming to SmackDown. I'm going to stop by too. So, we have that confrontation coming. We then have Finn Balor issuing a challenge to Edge for WrestleMania, which I feel like that storyline ended a bit ago, but considering Balor cost Edge the United States title last week, I can kind of understand. Next up, we have Asuka versus Carmella in a very interesting competitive bout. I felt like it would have been better if Asuka just squashed Carmella. Like, I know Carmella just came back and they want to make her a big deal, but Asuka is the one having the women's title match at WrestleMania. Yeah, and then Asuka with the big old armbar. She isn't even using the Asuka lock anymore, which, that's interesting. Then Asuka calls out Bianca Belair. Bianca Belair puts up, oh, we're going to have a banger at WrestleMania. And then Carmella jumps them both. Like, why does it feel like Asuka and Bianca Belair in this story are secondary characters, while Carmella is the main antagonist? Like, this shouldn't be. I don't want to see a triple threat between these three. Let's have Carmella in her spot here, and then Asuka being the main antagonist. It just makes sense to me. Then we get an interview with Paul Heyman, pretty much saying, Cody apparently isn't going to confront Roman, but Roman will confront Cody on SmackDown, which, stay tuned for that interview. That was a hell of a way to open SmackDown. I'll talk about it. Don't you worry. We then have an interview with Damage Control, seeing basically Bayley putting over to Io Sky and Dakota Kai, pretty much saying they're the best tag team champions, they're never going to lose, etc., etc. We then have a Lashley squash match on Elias. I feel bad for Elias at this point. Post-match, we have Lashley pretty much saying, oh, Bray, I don't play these kiddie games. I'm a serious competitor, etc., etc. And then on comes a very new version of the Muscle Man dance. If you remember that from Bray Wyatt's Mr. Rogers days. That was fun to see, and it's hard to explain Bray Wyatt stuff, but it's gonna be interesting. And finally, our main event for Monday Night Raw. We have the women's tag team titles on the line as Dakota Kai and Io Sky take on Becky Lynch and Lita. And honestly, they threw everything at each other. Oh, big old manhandle slam in the beginning, but that gets broken up. At one point, Bayley does come around when Becky was going to tag Lita, drags Lita from the apron. Down comes Trish Stratus, making her WWE return, taking out Bayley. We then see Diamond Dust into a disarmor, in which Io breaks that up. Then we get a very interesting lead assault for the win for the new tag team champions, Becky Lynch and Lita. That was a very impressive match by Lita. I know she doesn't really move like she used to, but I think she still has it. And I'm pretty happy that she's a champion again. And yes, I know I'm usually one of the guys that say legend shouldn't be beating current talent, blah, blah, blah. I'm okay with this one. Like, the story's interesting enough, so I'll give it a pass for now. Next up, we have NWA Power. And we start out with an interview between La Rosa Negra and Camille, the current NWA Women's Champion. And La Rosa Negra wants her shot, and it looks like she's going to get it at NWA 312, which is their next pay-per-view, which I believe is going to be sometime in late April. So that should be a fun one. Kylan King then faces Kenzie Page in the Women's TV title tournament, and honestly, this was a very, very fun match. I love seeing Kylan King in spots like this. She is fantastic. She should be on TV more. a lot of good back and forth. Kylan King then tries for the Excalibuster, which is countered into a cutter. Your winner and moving on in the tournament, Kenzie Page, which honestly I really enjoyed that match. Straightforward, clean finish. It's going to be interesting to see where this goes. We then had a very long couples therapy segment between May Valentine and Aaron Stevens, which dragged on for way too long. I am not even going to, cover it. Then we have Adrian Adonis, the former Chris Masters, cashing in his Champion Series title match on Tyrus for 312, which, alright, I'm kind of okay with that. And our main event, which really never got started, we had Bully Ray versus Mike Knox, and if Bully Ray won, he gets time in the ring with Matt Cardona. Now, before the bell, Knox jumps Bully Ray, gets him in the ring, and just starts battering him, including chair shots. Bully Ray tries to fight back, but then in comes Matt Cardona with the big boot. You definitely see Cardona saying, "Oh, set him up," and Mike Knox getting really pissed. Cardona then just pushes Mike Knox as he's gonna choke slam Bully through the table. He then grabs Cardona by the throat, brings him over, choke slam through the table. So it looks like the Cardona family is no more, which I feel like is a little bit sad because I really enjoyed the Cardona family, but I understand. Maybe not. And I'm interested to see where Mike Knox goes from here in NWA. And next up, this is again for Tuesday, we have MLW Underground, where the first segment, we have the Bumaye Fight Club, which is Alex Kane, who is a fantastic young wrestler, Mr. Thomas, who's the Giant, and Myron Reed, who is currently a free agent, but MLW tapes well in advance, so he's still here. And they call out the new Bulldogs, that being David Hart Smith and Mark and Alistair, I want to say. The British Bulldog's son and the Dynamite Kid's 2 kids, which I can't believe he had 2 kids. That's awesome. Davey Boy then knocks out Alex Kane with 1 shot, which that was very impressive. Our first match, we have Delirious, who has been kind of an MLW regular, and I'm happy he's getting some time. Teaming with Mini as Abismo Negro, who is, a little version of a masked wrestler, taking on Lince Dorado and Microman. And this match was a lot of fun to watch, a lot of good luchador action, including a 6.19 from Microman, which was a lot of fun. And then via the roll-up, Microman and Lince Dorado win. Now, what is now interesting is we now have, for the past couple of months, we've had talent backstage being knocked out and being covered in a calling card, which is like a triangle and a circle, which I don't get. We now have some masked superstars coming out, basically taking out Microman and Lince Dorado. So, I don't know if these guys have any association with Cesar Duran, or, this is going to be an interesting development, but we now have some steps into the identity of these attackers. Next up, we have Kyla Cassidy versus Billy Starks in the featherweight division. This was a lot more fun than I thought it would be. Billy Starks I've only seen a handful of times, but she is very good for her age. I think she's only like 13. So, definitely a young person, but she's going to grow more into it. And she wins via the Spicoli driver. So we have Billy Starks now being built up. Then on the ramp, we have Taya Valkyrie, who is the featherweight champion. Pretty much saying, oh, you're too young, you're too inexperienced yet. Come at me when you're ready. So, we'll see what happens there. Then we have a match set for this week. We have Alex Kane issuing a challenge to the Bulldogs. We'll have the Billington Bulldogs versus Myron Reed and Mr. Thomas later tonight. That should be fun. And finally, we have our very exciting main event of the evening. The MLW National Openweight title as Davey Richards takes on John Hennigan, a.k.a. John Morrison. And I will tell you, this was a fun clash of styles. You had the more grounded, kind of flighty Davey Richards trying to ground Hennigan, while Hennigan was trying to do more speedy, high-fly stuff. We then get, for the finish, we have Hennigan trapped in the sharpshooter, ready to go. Cesar Duran, who is ringside, then gets the ref's full attention. Taya Valkyrie slides into the ring with her title belt, hits Davey Richards right in the head, and via roll-up, your new openweight champion, John Hennigan. This match was absolutely phenomenal. I can understand the disputed finish, and hopefully we get a rematch somewhere down the line. Although I believe Davey Richards is a free agent soon to be too, so let's hope Davey sticks around so we can see a rematch. I would not mind seeing that. Alright, next up we have AEW Dynamite. This was obviously live before Revolution was this Sunday. So this is definitely a little bit behind, but, whatever. Our first match, we have Orange Cassidy defending his All-Atlantic title, taking on Big Bill, a.k.a. Big Cass. This was a very entertaining big guy versus little guy match. Had plenty of outside interference, including Stokely Hathaway taking his cast off, handing and twatting Orange Cassidy with it. Then we have a bunch of orange punches in a row. Big Bill then goes down. And then Cassidy hits Beach Break for the win. That was honestly a very entertaining match between the two. They had some great chemistry, and I wouldn't mind seeing more from these two, honestly. We then see the Elite, who I guess was getting ready for a promo. Lights go out. Their opponents from Revolution, the House of Black, turn off the lights. They come back on, standing over them with the titles. Ooh, the foreboding. Ooh. We then get the Face of the Revolution ladder match, which usually that's on the Revolution pay-per-view, but now it got bumped to the 1 hour Iron Man match. We had Eddie Kingston, Santana, Sammy Guevara, Commander from AAA, Takeshita, Action Andretti, Powerhouse Hobbs, and AR Fox. And pretty much almost immediately you have Santana and Eddie Kingston fight to the back, so they're kind of out of it. A lot of great high-flying moves from Sammy Guevara and Commander, including Commander walking the ropes, the top rope, and diving from the turnbuckle onto a crowd of people. That got me. A big old spine buster from Hobbs on one of the ladders. Action Andretti, then we got a pretty big, I don't even know what to call it. I think it was a power slam onto a ladder, which that looked like it hurt. We then had Guevara set up a ladder outside the ring and do a senton onto Andretti, which that was absolutely crazy. We then had Takeshita and Powerhouse Hobbs fighting on up top, and Hobbs then pushes Takeshita off and reaches the brass ring. So he will be getting a TNT title match next week against, spoiler alert, Wardlow. That match is going to be fun. I can't wait. We then have a backstage segment with Hangman Page talking to Evil Uno, trying to get him hyped up for his match against Moxley. And, Evil Uno versus Moxley. Who would have thought? Then we have a Christian Cage interview, pretty much saying, for the past 6 months, I've been waiting for this moment. I want Jungle Boy in a fight, not a match. Then we see kind of lights out and Jungle Boy digging Christian Cage's grave. And it's announced for a last burial match, which, if you've seen my review, that shit was pretty brutal. Like, that was a fun match to watch. We then have an FTW title match, which this was a little random. We have Matt Hardy taking on Hook. Hook with his usual stuff, and he even blocked a twist of fate, which you don't see that very often, which he then transitioned into a red rum for the submission victory. A very usual short and sweet match for Hook. I am very surprised he wasn't on the pay-per-view, but, due to the, Iron Man match, it's understandable. You then have Toni Storm taking on Riho in a very, very excellent match. I was definitely ready for it. Saraya definitely got involved more than a couple times. Riho then hits a beautiful 619 to Toni Storm. Although, technically it's called a Tiger Feint Kick, but I will always call it the 619. Riho then hits her double stomp for only a 2. Then we have Then Toni Storm tosses Riho via her hair, which that looked brutal. Then Riho gets Toni Storm in a cloverleaf submission for the victory. Like, I am surprised Riho won that match, especially if you wanted to build Toni Storm off as a legit contender for Jamie Hayter down the line, although Hayter has beat her a couple times, so that was fine. Earlier in the night, we heard that Best Friends were not cleared to compete in the Casino Battle Royal to round out the Fatal 4-Way for the tag title match. So Danhausen volunteered himself and Orange Cassidy, in which they won, which, match itself was fine. It was fun. I was kind of hoping for FTR, although FTR did come back at Revolution, so not gonna put down AEW for that one. And main event segment, we have Danielson trying to hype up his match, and then MJF comes out. It looks like he's about to say something, and Danielson pretty much goes over, I've had these crowds in the palm of my hand for years now. I'm ready to take the AEW title off of you. And Danielson tells MJF, I hope you're ready to wrestle for 60 minutes, because if you're not, I'm taking the title. So that's Dynamite. Very, very good build for the pay-per-view. And now we have Impact Wrestling and our debut episode of the Tony Khan Ring of Honor. But first, we will start with Impact, as we start off with Chris Bay and Ace Austin of the Bullet Club. Too sweet. Pretty much going over how they and Kenta beat Kushida and the Motor City Machine Guns at No Surrender, which makes them feel like they're entitled for a title shot. The Guns then come out, pretty much go over their history, how they started in 2006, which that's crazy to think about. And now they're still champions. And Bay and Ace have been teaming for a little while now. It does look like they're about to set up a match for either Rebellion or Sacrifice. But instead, Chris Sabin goes, why don't we just do it tonight? And that's going to be our main event. We'll get to that doozy in a little bit. So that match is made for later tonight. First match of the evening, we have Shane Haste, the former Shane Thorne in WWE, making his Impact debut. He's been in New Japan with TMDK, taking on Speedball Mike Bailey. And ooh, boy, do these two work really, really well together. A lot of surprising high flying from both, but definitely some good mat wrestling. Like, if you're a wrestling purist, I couldn't recommend this match more. We've had a couple of submission tries from Haste, but Bailey ultimately gets out. We then have Bailey missed on the spin kick, a nasty looking powerbomb for the 2. Then we have in the corner a big old spin kick into the Ultima Weapon for Mike Bailey to get the win. And oof, boy, if this is just step 1 of a preview for Multiverse United, I'm ready. Let's do it. Next match, we have Kenny King versus Kevin Knight, another New Japan import. And ooh, boy, Kevin Knight is a little tough to keep track of, but he is an absolute fantastic high flyer. I hope he sticks around for a little bit, because I think he could be a great addition to the X Division. And Kenny King wins this match with a Royal Flush. We then have a Mickie James promo. She put over how tough her match with Masha Slamovich was. She then goes over her Bound for Glory tap out against Jordynne Grace, which, you know, if she's champ, that just proves she did not. Then Giselle Shaw interrupts, and she has her whole posse with her. Pretty much says, I'm jumping the line. You haven't faced Shaw like this before. So next week, we are getting Mickie James versus Giselle Shaw. I believe it's for the title. So, yeah, that's going to be a fun one. Next up, we have Trey Miguel taking on PCO. And boy, oh boy, did Dre look a little bit out of place. He tried to use his speed against PCO's power, which that does not work. Big old pop-up powerbomb to Dre, which, dang. Big old leg drop. In comes Eddie Kingston, who hits PCO with the shovel, which causes the DQ for the PCO win. This continues until PCO chokeslams Edwards. Security then comes out. PCO basically fights them off, hits a PCO saw aiming for Eddie Edwards, but Eddie Edwards moves out of the way, so more than likely we're going to get that match in the future, and I cannot wait. And final I'm off for Impact. We have the Motor City Machine Guns defending their tag team titles against ABC 123, just too sweet. Ace and Bay of the Bullet Club. And honestly, these four guys worked so well together. At times, I will admit, it was a little bit hard to follow, but ultimately, a lot of good creative moves, including a double tornado DDT, which was awesome. Chris Sabin then goes for the Cradle Shock. That gets broken up. We then get a Motor City stretch by Alex Shelley. Sabin goes for the Cradle Shock again, but that gets rolled up. For the 2, we then get an Art of Finesse into the fold for the win for Bullet Club, your new Impact Tag Team Champions. And honestly, this match is fantastic. If you don't watch Impact, I'm just going to say, at least give this matchup a try. This was a very fun, very good wrestling match. Next up, we have the first episode of Ring of Honor under the Tony Khan banner. And we're not going to start off with them. Our first match is Mark Briscoe versus Slim J in a decent little opener. Nothing too crazy. Mark goes over. Next up, we got another interesting little match as the Infantry, which is Sean Dean and I forget the other guy's name. I do apologize. Taking on Mike Bennett and Matt Taven, the Kingdom. It's about time the Kingdom get their dues. A lot of great double team maneuvers by both sides. Ultimately, after the Proton Pack, the Kingdom get the win. Next up, in a doozy of a wrestling match, you have the New Japan TV title on the line as Zack Sabre Jr. defends against Blake Christian. And honestly, this was a lot of good mat wrestling from Sabre. Blake Christian with some good high flying and then matching the good wrestling. A lot of submission hold tries by Sabre Jr. to wear down his opponent. Oh, and also it's a 15-minute time limit for the TV title defense, in which there could always be a time limit. Blake Christian then misses a 450. Zack Sabre Jr. with a big old Kimura lock for the submission victory. So This is an interesting start to Ring of Honor. Next week, we are going to get a big old tag team match between Aussie Open and Rhett Titus and Tracy Williams. A couple of former tag team champions in their own right. I cannot wait for that. You then have Konosuke Takeshita versus Josh Woods, former Pure champion. This was a hoss fight if I've ever seen, or close to a hoss fight. These two guys went to war against each other, but Takeshita had more momentum with him and won via the Brainbuster, which that was insanity. Next up, we got a segment with a Wheeler Yuta interview, basically calling him the Blackpool Combat Club young boy. He pretty much says, yeah, I've earned my spot in the Blackpool Combat Club, I'm the Pure Champion, and I'm issuing an open challenge for next week for the title. Out comes Timothy Thatcher, and a former opponent for Bryan Danielson, so he does have some history with the Blackpool Combat Club, and he accepts the match. I'm giddy for that. I can't wait for that match. Next up, we have Lady Frost versus Willow Nightingale. Match I never thought I'd be seeing on television, and I think it lived up to the hype. Willow definitely using her agility and power. Meanwhile, Lady Frost trying to use more of her speed. Power prevails after a big old power bomb. And then an in-ring segment. Willow Nightingale pretty much saying, oh, I've been on a big old winning streak for a while in Ring of Honor, and I want the champ. Out comes Athena, initially says no, but then pretty much says, okay, next week, let's see what you got. So we got a couple of really big title matches next week, and I am here for it. And finally, our main event of the evening for Thursday, we have Claudio Castagnoli defending his ROH title against AR Fox. Another decent little big guy versus little guy dynamic. AR Fox trying more high flying stuff. Meanwhile, Claudio is more grounded, although he did hit a couple of decent springboard uppercuts. We then have the Cesaro swing, which honestly, no matter the size of the opponent, that will always get me going. That is awesome. Then we get a pretty big up top uppercut, in which Claudio gets the pin for the win. That was a very entertaining match. AR Fox finally got more of a solo spotlight, although I do like him with Top Flight. Don't get me wrong. I think he needed a solo run for a while now. And then next challenger up, Eddie Kingston, as it was reported on Wednesday. Eddie Kingston quit AEW in a backstage segment. Says, now that we're here in ROH, I don't have to worry about Jon Moxley's promise for me not beating your butt, and I'm challenging for the Ring of Honor title. Claudio says nothing, and he just leaves the ring. I hope this is at Death Before Dishonor. That match will be absolutely fantastic. And finally, we are back to it, ladies and gentlemen. It is SmackDown and Rampage to round out the week. Now, SmackDown starts. We got Roman Reigns with various members of Bloodline, Solo Sikoa, Paul Heyman, and Jimmy Uso. Still no Jay. Don't worry, we'll get to that next week. Comes out before Roman can say anything. Cody comes out, pretty much says, I'm not here to invade, I'm just here to talk. And then asks Roman if he needs his buddies there. Roman then tells his crew to leave. They do, which I'm surprised by that. He then lays his WWE and Universal titles on the ground and pretty much takes a line from Cody himself, well, what do you want to talk about? Then Cody pretty much brings up what Heyman's been saying on Raw to him about how Roman is the son Dusty never had, which definitely got under Cody's skin. Then Roman pretty much said, yeah, Dusty and I talked all the time, including a very impressive Dusty impression by Roman. I'll give him that. That was a great impression. And no, I will not be doing a Dusty Rhodes impression. Then pretty much Cody spurts up, oh, if this is true, then this isn't just about legacy, it's not just about titles, it's about me existing. It's about me finally stepping into those shoes and becoming a main eventer. And then basically says, I'll see you at WrestleMania. In which I honestly, I'm surprised they didn't throw down right then and there, but if you don't believe in Cody right now, you're insane. Like, Cody Rhodes has been giving great promo after great promo, having great matches on Raw. He certainly feels like a main eventer, and I cannot wait to see him dethrone Roman. Spoiler alert for my predictions. Next up, we have Rhea Ripley versus Liv Morgan. Morgan did have a bit of a fight in her, but ultimately this was dominated by Rhea Ripley, including a cloverleaf submission, which Rhea Ripley doesn't pull out the submissions really ever. So that was fun to see. We then see Rhea and Dom backstage. We get Santos Escobar in, pretty much saying, how dare you besmirch the legacy of your father, you're a bastard son, and I want you in the ring tonight. So we go to that match, Santos Escobar versus Dominic Mysterio, and honestly, both worked really, really well together. Dom after the 619 with the win. I'm honestly surprised there hasn't been any Legado del Fantasma involvement with Santos Escobar, but I'm enjoying this connectivity between Santos's story and Rey's story. I feel like it works. Hell, maybe we'll see Rey Mysterio and Legado del Fantasma. How cool would that be? And then they feud a little bit post-WrestleMania with the Judgment Day. Although I think we are getting Rey versus Dominic at WrestleMania. So maybe they get involved there. Post-match, Dom then gets the mask Rey Mysterio gave to Santos Escobar and just rips it. Rey then comes out, gets right in the face of Dom. Dom is going Rey in to hit him. He doesn't. Rey then pushes him over. In which I want to see Rey beat Dom. Like, it's about time the father puts his son in place. We then have a Drew McIntyre promo in which he pretty much says, it's WrestleMania season, I don't have a match booked yet. And he calls out Gunther for an Intercontinental title match. Sheamus then comes out, says, I feel betrayed by you, man. I thought we were brothers. Drew then retorts with, oh, are you my parent? Do I need to ask permission before doing this? You've had your shots. You've failed every time. Now it's someone else's turn. Out comes LA Knight, pretty much doing his shtick while Drew and Sheamus are in the ring pushing each other. Out comes the New Day, making fun of LA Knight. And then Karrion Kross and Scarlett come out, don't say anything. But then they jump. Kross then jumps Drew, which starts a big old brawl. So for next week, we got a 5-way match to determine who faces Gunther for the Intercontinental title at WrestleMania. It's, of course, Drew, Sheamus, LA Knight, Kofi, although it does look like Kofi got hurt. I hope you heal up soon, my man. Nothing but love for you. And Karrion Kross. So, that should be a fun one. Then we see a backstage post-fight? I don't even know what to call it. Where we see Tegan Nox took out Ronda Rousey. We were meant to have a tag team match between Natalya, Nox, Shayna Baszler, and Ronda Rousey. That gets turned into a one-on-one between Shayna and Nox, in which Shayna just rose through Nox, which, whatever. Next out, we have Bobby Lashley pretty much saying, I'm here to talk to you. Let's set something up. Lights go out, lights come back on. Uncle Howdy jumps Bobby Lashley, who then, after composing himself, hits a big old power slam. He's set up for the spear. Lights out again, lights back on. Uncle Howdy leaves. So it does look like at WrestleMania we're going to get something between Lashley and Bray Wyatt, which I don't know. I'm kind of okay with that. And our main event for SmackDown, we have Sami Zayn versus Solo Sikoa. Sami Zayn throughout the match trying to use more of his evasiveness over just trying to go face-to-face with Solo. Solo then powers him out, including a beautiful Samoan drop. Sami tries for the hula kick and whiffs. Then a big old Samoan spike for the win for Solo. I'm a little disappointed they had Sami lose this match, but gotta keep Solo looking good. Post-match, we have Jimmy and Solo in a beatdown. Solo then gets a chair. He sets it up in the corner, looks to be going for a hip attack. Jimmy stops him, says, I'll do this myself. I was tasked with taking out Sami Zayn. Sami Zayn then takes the chair off, throws it at Jimmy, then picks it up again and runs Solo out of the ring. That was a fun match. I do hope we get Sami Zayn getting a win over Solo in the near future. But, we'll see what happens. And finally, we got a very interesting Rampage as it opens up with a Fatal 4-Way Tag Team match. As we have the Blackpool Combat Club, that being Claudio Castagnoli and Wheeler Yuta, Aussie Open from New Japan, Top Flight, and Dark Order members John Silver and Alex Reynolds. This was a bit of a cluster match, but it was a lot of fun. A lot of power moves from Aussie Open. A lot of John Silver going for a dive a couple times. He then gets uppercutted by Claudio. We then get a pendulum powerbomb by Aussie Open that gets broken up. Then we got a step-up enziguri from Wheeler Yuta, a cutter from Claudio, and the Blackpool Combat Club get the win. Then post-match, we have Silver and Reynolds brawling with the Blackpool Combat Club. So it does seem like this feud is continuing on a little bit. Then in our main event of the evening, main event of the week, honestly, we have Swerve Strickland and Parker Boudreaux taking on Keith Lee and Dustin Rhodes. Strickland, Parker, and their partner, who I'm surprised wasn't there, initially took out Keith Lee with a cinder block in quotations. He then came back to help Dustin. Sorry. We definitely had a big couple power moves between Keith Lee and Parker. We then had Keith Lee being held open on the ring apron by Parker, in which Swerve did a stomp to the chest of Keith Lee and dove outside the ring. Then Dustin Rhodes breaks out the Destroyer. Then we had Dustin and Keith Lee tossing Parker on the outside. Bing Bang Catastrophe by Keith Lee for the win for the tag team. And yeah, that'll do it from me. I hope you guys enjoyed my recap. Please like the video, leave your comments, let me know what you thought about this week in pro wrestling. Let me know what you're looking forward to in the coming weeks for pro wrestling. Because it is an exciting time to be a wrestling fan, and I am here for it. Until next time, happy wrestling, everybody. Peace.